wind down the Big Ten. Craig Smoak, the UCLA Bruins.
Yeah, I think we are getting close to the end of the Big Ten, and if we just don't take like 2-week breaks in between schedules like we kind of did there, I think last month we kind of went a ways without doing one for a few days, and as so long as we avoid that, I think we should have all of these done certainly before the season starts, but hopefully we can try to get it in before media days, which I think is possible. I think we'll be cutting it like maybe right up close to it, but regardless, we do have the SEC left, but first, the Big Ten remaining teams, and today is UCLA. So we are getting towards the end of the alphabet there. But let's start off with the Bruins and just kind of what last year looked like. This isn't a deep dive, obviously, but 5-7 under first-year head coach Deshaun Foster and first-year coordinators there. Eric Bieniemy, obviously a very well-known name there as their OC. But the offseason, of course, completely headlined, and I don't even know what else the second biggest story at UCLA was this offseason outside of the Nico saga and him eventually landing there with the Bruins. So they'll have Nico as the trigger man. How much better does that make them? I don't know, but big year 2 for Deshaun Foster after replacing Chip Kelly. So what does their schedule look like, and is there a path to at least take the step up to making a bowl game, which they failed just a game short of last season? So things get started on August the 30th in a very interesting contest, as it will be the Utah Utes at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, an 8 o'clock game on Fox. So right out of the gates, getting a big challenge there, and vice versa, Utah and UCLA. So I like this one, and this is one of those games where I don't think the Big Ten's in there going like, we need wins over the Big 12 to, make us raise our profile. But I do think that teams in the Big 12 need wins over teams in the Big 10 and the SEC to raise their profile. So this is a very important game, I believe, for Utah, and just kind of the early look at the league. So that'll be Saturday, August the 30th, late night kick, but a nice one there on opening weekend. Then Saturday, September the 6th, they will travel to Las Vegas for a meeting with Dan Mullen and his running Rebels of UNLV, who we just talked about in depth a bit earlier in the show. So Utah then at UNLV, followed by a Friday game on September the 12th against New Mexico, that at home. And then they get their first bye week, as they will have a nice clean schedule of 3 weeks of non-con games and then a break. And then you get into conference play and you'll have another break, but non-con, and then all Big Ten action after that. But it's a hell of a non-con, man. I mean, Utah, we'll see. UNLV, we'll see. But Utah at home and then at UNLV is certainly a couple better games than I've seen on some other schedules that we've done so far.
Like there's a shot out of here that they would be 1-2.
Sure, there is.
I mean, there really is. I mean, like more so than a lot of other teams in the Big Ten that would have the same schedule. So, but like again, I'm very bullish on Utah. So I think that'd be a great one to open up. As a matter of fact, I know which, what corner of the YouTube TV for the 11 o'clock kicks is going to be tuned onto that one, because that's very intriguing. Nico's first presumed start. I guess there's a shot somebody could beat him out. I don't think so. No. You don't go and get him. But, yeah, Nico's first presumed start there at Utah, he could get injured. But, yeah, I think even in the UNLV game, look, Dan Mullen steps into a team that, I know lost some guys and lost their quarterback, but he's a good coach, and they've been able to get good players, and that's a team that's kind of used to winning right now. So those first two, and look, New Mexico wasn't bad last year either, but Utah has their quarterback now. So, we'll see what happens there. But even still, that's 3 pretty good games to start out. I mean, if you're making a schedule that I think a lot of people couldn't scoff at, I think congratulations, UCLA. You made a non-conference schedule that's pretty damn good, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does have some nice challenges there right out of the gates. So a Friday game, as I mentioned, that'll be their only weeknight game. Everything else is Saturday. But following the break, they open up Big Ten play September 27th at Northwestern. Then the following week, it'll be Penn State at home in L.A. October the 11th, back on the road. And their entire schedule throughout Big Ten play, but the entire schedule, period, is home and away, home and away, home and away. There is no back-to-back home games. There's no back-to-back road games. There's just all rotating every single week. So at Northwestern, Penn State at home, then at Michigan State on October the 11th, back at home October the 18th to host Maryland, and then close out the month of October So 4 games there in the month of October. Close out the month of October at Indiana. So heading to Bloomington to take on the Hoosiers, who are obviously rolling in hot. But at that point, I mean, 2 months into the season, who knows where they are. But on paper, there you go. That second stint before they get into their second bye week there. You have, as I mentioned, at Northwestern, Penn State home, at Michigan State, Maryland at home, at Indiana. How you feeling about wave 2 of the schedule for UCLA there?
I think it's fairly challenging, especially that Penn State and Indiana, there's
Michigan
so much.
State could be a lot better too.
Michigan State could be a lot better. Jonathan Smith year 2. I mean, he's a very, very good coach, and he got that job for a reason. So we'll see. I think the thing, though, that Craig, that you mentioned about their schedule of not having back-to-back home games and ping-ponging back and forth all season, that's going to play a factor to me at some point. Because most of these other teams, and we've seen them, like how many teams in the Big Ten don't leave their home stadium for a month?
The 2 closest home games they will play, the 2 closest road games they will play is Las Vegas to play UNLV. So that's nothing. That's a typical trip for people who live in LA. And then it's USC, so cross town. But outside of that, you're going to Ohio, to Indiana, to Michigan, to Illinois. And so, yeah, they're traveling a bit more, but that was all what you signed up for, right? So it's part of the deal there. But as opposed to your old digs where it was a lot of in-state or around you or neighboring states like Arizona, you have a lot of travel to halfway across the country. So they get into phase 3 after that Indiana road game. We'll see where they are at that point, how many wins they may or may not need for bowl eligibility. But their final month, all games in November, starting on Saturday, November the 8th, they will play host to Nebraska. Then November 15th, they go to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. November 22nd at home against Washington. So getting some of that Pac love still, and they'll continue that on into the final week as on November the 29th, they are at Southern Cal for the Battle of Los Angeles, if you will. And that's how they'll close it out. Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC. When you see a smidge of a schedule like that, I will say that when you're talking to people who need the big game to be attracted to watching their team, which is a lot of people now is kind of how they're conditioned because they've got sports betting brain and immediacy brain. I mean, it's hard to argue when you look at, like, no disrespect, because I have more respect for Arizona and Arizona State than probably a lot of national people do when they're talking about those teams, unless they're the hot team of the moment, right? But if you're one of those that, like, we signed up to play big names, big games, I don't know how big the games will be, but Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC to close the last – that's pretty damn good, man. That's some big names and potentially some big games.
Nebraska's
okay, I'm talking historically. You don't always have to be, like, self-deprecating.
No. I'm saying Nebraska is still a name. Yeah, I've always talked about the logos. Those are 4 big-time logos, no question.
And look, I think that if you're UCLA, if you want to get to that bowl game, you better be at 5 before you get to that last 4 stretch.
Oh, for sure.
And the thing is, if you're not at 6, depending on how, especially the teams not named Ohio State improve, year over year. Look, they all have young quarterbacks that they like.
But Fish in his second year,
all that. So all those things that coming down, like, you may want to be at 6 if you're talking bowl game before then. And the fact that you also have Indiana, who people think isn't really going anywhere. Like, they may take a slight step back, but everybody loves Kurt Cignetti. You've got Penn State. You've got Michigan State year 2. This is a tough schedule.
The game with Utah could be one that allows them to know who they're going to be. I know that's way early, but compared down the stretch.
I think you're right, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I apologize. I'm just so used to when you talk about Nebraska, it's always like, they're nobody.
No, they're still a name. Yes. There's a question about, okay, but who are they, and who knows who they are? But no, they beat Nebraska last year in Lincoln. It's 27-20. It was one of their better games of the year, and that's always been the kind of game that lately in the last 10 years Nebraska loses. So UCLA did win last year. Quarterback played well. Nebraska turned it over. So there's a stretch down this. I love – that's a fantastic schedule. If I'm a fan, you're going to see some really good football teams and some pretty nice road trips.
Oh, man, if I can swing it and I don't necessarily do it every year, I need to look at the schedule. This is definitely season ticket year. I mean, I don't even think there's a question about that. You're buying season tickets if you're a hardcore UCLA fan who needs to see the schedule. Now, granted, some of those bigger games are on the road, but yeah, if you're one of those that can swing that, then this is the year to do it, because there is a lot of names and potentially a lot of big games that are on there. I have no clue how good they're actually going to be. I don't think Nico's like the savior by any means, but he's definitely a good player that could make them much improved offensively. So they're an interesting team heading into this season that without that move, I don't know what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about year 2 with the staff and things like that, but the Nico move puts more eyes on them for better or worse. And yeah, there's a lot of names on here. So I would think this is one of the tougher schedules in the entire country. I mean, from top to bottom, you start off with Utah and UNLV on the road, and then you get into all the Big Ten teams that we mentioned there. They do miss a couple of them, which I'll get to, but I actually just Googled real quick. And you can turn off the AI, right, on the Google search, but I don't think I've done that yet. And so the AI answer always pops up, and it's not always accurate. I've learned that very quickly. It's not always accurate. But I did ask hardest schedules in the country, CFB 2025, and it does not have them listed. It doesn't even have them as an also-ran. So one of the teams that allegedly has a tougher schedule is Wisconsin, which, looking at it, I could see the case for that. We'll get to them in, I guess, a couple of days or so. But, yeah, UCLA, not listed there, but I'd have to imagine this is up there. I mean, to me, on paper at least, it looks pretty tough. But maybe I'm just being blinded by the big fan bases. I don't know. So as far as who they don't play, they will not play Indiana.
They are playing.
Or excuse me. Okay, sorry. I had X's next to the teams that actually they do play. I was reading it backwards. They don't play Illinois. They don't play Iowa. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Minnesota. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Purdue, Rutgers. Obviously, they don't play themselves. They don't play Wisconsin either. So no Wisconsin. Who knows with Luke Fickell, really. Purdue's more interesting, but that's not like a big miss on the schedule necessarily, but they should be better. Not playing Oregon's obviously a break. Not playing them. Michigan, I don't know how good they'll be, but you miss them as well. So Iowa, always tough. Illinois, good last year. So they do. Big Ten's got pretty good depth. I mean, when you start to really break it down with all the expansion additions.
Their depth, it depends on Wisconsin bouncing back,
Nebraska,
Indiana staying who they were, Nebraska being better, and then, by the way, UCLA and USC being a part of that conversation.
So there you go. They're over-unders. I was looking at it. It was like 4.5 some places, 5.5 other places. That's about right. So there you go. There's the UCLA schedule. It's going to be a tough one, but an interesting one for the Bruins.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. Who's next?
Next
USC.
we have USC.
USC, the Trojans, and Lincoln Riley and company. Okay.
We have a super chat real quick, Smokey.